part of it is what platforms are they using voice in? And then the other part is, what sort of use cases? How are they using voice-enabled technology? For the platforms, it's a whole range of things. It's smartphone operating systems, it's mobile apps within smartphones, it's computer operating systems. The whole smart speaker industry is really big in China, as well as other smart devices for the home and smart toys for kids, intelligent driving systems for cars, and even AI voice-enabled customer service. These are all platforms that are using voice in China now. In terms of use case, how people are using it, they're using it to listen to music, select music. They're using it to get directions, set timers, jot down messages for themselves, little memos, and make calls, obviously. And in greater and greater numbers, they're using it to actually make purchases, to order food, or to book a service. One interesting thing about the iProspect study that was done is that for China, there's a huge percentage of people who report using voice-enabled technologies not as a utility, but for entertainment, to surf the web. So people are also engaging with voice interfaces for entertainment purposes as well. To give you a sense of the numbers, just in terms of smartphone usage, which is a huge use of voice technology in China, back of the envelope numbers here, if you assume maybe there's around 800 million smartphone users in China, about 77% of them report using voice-enabled exchanges, interactions on their smartphone. So 77% gets you to around 600 million. And of that 600 million, 44% claim that they're using this technology daily. So that gets you to somewhere around like 270 million consumers every day in China are using voice-enabled technologies on their smartphone. One of the reasons is obviously convenience. China is an ancient language with an ancient writing system that is not optimized for computer input. And so convenient, right? It's much easier to talk to a machine and get what you want. It's much faster to speak Mandarin than to type it. So convenience is part of it. But probably a much bigger and more important reason is the Chinese government has identified smart voice as one of its main areas for AI technology research and development. It's among 4 key areas, right? Smart voice is one, smart cities is another, healthcare is a third, and autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles is the other category. So there's huge emphasis by the government to look at smart voice and different kinds of incentives for companies to play that way. So that's a big reason why China's leading. And because of that emphasis from the government, there's a lot of homegrown genius here. There's a lot of Chinese companies who are leading the technology development of voice-enabled interfaces. One company I mentioned in the article is iFlyTech, a company I had never heard of before coming to China. This is their 20th anniversary. They've been in business for 20 years. And for all those 20 years, they've been studying voice recognition, voice synthesis, image recognition, and other kinds of artificial intelligence and machine learning systems for 20 years. They were ranked by MIT as one of the 6th or 7th I say in the article, I forget which number, one of the smartest companies in the world and the highest ranking Chinese company on the list. So there's a lot of homegrown talent, which is another reason why they're leading. A fourth reason that I thought of was just how crowded the voice market is, right? If you have all this government stress, of importance on voice, and you have all this homegrown talent, then you start to have a lot of different people finding new ways to use voice-enabled technology. So it's a very crowded marketplace for these, right? Alibaba's working in this space, Xiaomi, Huawei, Baidu, Lenovo, JD.com, iFlyTech themselves. They're all creating new kinds of devices and services that are all using voice-enabled technologies. That leads to China leading the world in this technology. And the last point I made was about, the last thought I had about why China's leading is around the emotional power of voice, right? Once you start using natural language to interact with machines and machines start using natural language to talk back to you, there's a bond, there's just an emotional bond that gets created that's very different from type and texting. And that emotional bond, I think this is a market that's hungry for that, right? This is the country with generations of only children and with a giant migratory workforce. So there are lots of people who want to just talk to someone. And this kind of voice-enabled interface can help answer that reason as well. So those were the 5 main reasons I thought China is leading in voice technology. I'm not sure that brands have a much different opportunity in China than brands would have anywhere else in the world for this technology. And I think there are as many challenges as there might be opportunities. So to first look at the challenges, I think voice search is a huge open question how that will work and what consumers want from that, right? It's just a fact of our physiology. How we process auditory information is very different from how we process visual information. So when you can just quickly scan a bunch of visual search results, that's a very different experience from having to listen through different auditory search results. And so it's not clear exactly how voice search will work for brands. It is clear, though, that consumers, when they're using voice search, think of it as a utility. And so the opportunity to interrupt that utility with an ad, with a bot placement, seems questionable, at least at this point, for voice search. And then to the bigger issue of just advertising. How will advertising work in a world with all these voice-enabled devices? How will advertising work on a smart speaker? There's some thought that maybe this will be a huge renaissance of like the radio spot, and audio-only advertising could be kind of spot advertising on these platforms. But that's to be seen. It's to be seen how advertising inserts itself in this kind of conversation. You can imagine a world where a lot of marketers will be doing what a lot of search engine optimization is doing now, where you will be understanding the algorithms that are driving these voice-enabled platforms. And part of your job as a marketer will be to tag appropriately, meta tag all your brand's assets in a way that these voice-enabled interfaces can grab that content and speak it out fluently. You can imagine a lot of the work will be behind the scenes for marketers with these platforms. So those are some of the challenges. For opportunities, right, it's the same the world over. The opportunity will be to really dimensionalize a brand and personalize it, right? You will actually give your brand a voice. Your brand will talk. What will it sound like? What words will it use? What personality will it express through how it talks? This will be a really rich area for brands to play in. How will you actually have conversations with your consumers? And it will be a conversation. And I think the brands that start experimenting with this and leading the way, who are able to have more fluid and fluent conversations with consumers, will win. One of the issues for China is around dialects, right? So will voice-enabled technologies allow for sort of a resurgence of dialects? Will people be able to speak in their native dialect to these machines? Or will this be an opportunity to just further standardize all the dialects of China into Mandarin? That's to be determined, that's to be seen, but there's an opportunity anyway that you can allow for these devices to perform interactions based on any of the native dialects of China. And that could be really interesting for an opportunity for brands going forward as well.